Hi everyone, you're welcome and welcome again to my YouTube channel. My name is Beni and I'm excited to welcome you to today's video. We are going to be talking about starting and maintaining conversations, whether in informal settings, we go to in everyday life. We expect to be meeting people. It can even be in a bus, going to work or going anywhere, and it can be at church, it can be in a meeting, it can be in a conference like an international or a local conference. And in all those settings, networking is really important because most of these events are just there to allow us to meet people and to network because we live because other people live. So whether we like it or not, we are always pushed, like life pushes to get in to talk to people. So the approach you make or how you talk to a person for a very first time is going to determine the relationship you're going to have this person after this particular meeting, which is why the first impression matters and you should always give it your best. First things first, before going to an event or even in your everyday life, because it doesn't have to always be a conference or a big event or a church service or anything. It can be in daily life. Make sure that you are always comfortable, especially on those days you feel like you are determined to meet new people and talk to new people. Wear comfortable clothes, make sure that you smell nice, wear deodorant, brush your teeth, make sure you don't have mouth odor so that you don't intimidate people and make them want to go far away from you. And from that, you have gained some points of keeping or making someone comfortable to stay closer in your space. After that, then you can start with your conversation, thinking of what you're going to be telling people. If you moved into a new city, try to document yourself, read on the internet. Maybe if there is a city guide or anything like a book, just read it to know what is happening in that city. If it's an event, make sure you have basic information about people who will attend that event. If it's an international conference, make sure you basic nationalities which are going to be there and learn a thing or two about these countries. What it is going to help you, it is going to help you to have like starter information on when you're going to start a conversation with a person. For example, if you meet a person after saying, "Hi, how are you?" the conversation shouldn't die there, or you shouldn't just keep quiet and wait for them to ask for your name and then what you do. You can, for example, pull up something like, "Oh, hi, how are you? My name is ABCD." After saying your name, maybe they're also going to say their name, and maybe you can guess from how a person look and be like, "I guess you're from this country." If they happen to be from that country, you can pull up something like, "Oh, I've heard maybe Canada is too cold. I've heard the winter season in the US is really amazing." And from there, they're going to feel like you know something about them, which is going to pull them to you and make them want to stay because they have found someone who actually knows something about them. And they're like, "How do you know?" Or "What do you know about ABCD?" It's gonna be easy to make the conversation flow like that. And if you are in a work setting, for example, after a person telling you what they do, you might be like, "Oh, I've heard maybe coding is not for the weak. Coding is really hard." They're going to be like, "Do you know about coding?" And from there, going to have a conversation. And maybe you can also start with your passions or something you love. If it's a person who is in a higher position career wise to you, you can start being like, "I have always wanted to do this," or "I've heard ABCD about your career," or "There is a trend happening in your career." Just make sure that you always have something constructive and that is catchy, that is going to maintain that person. And it doesn't have to always be rocket science. It can be something simple. Let's say if it's a public health professional, you can start talking about pandemics and be like, "Oh, have been in a high pandemic season. How did you manage? How did you feel about it professionally? How did it ABCD?" It can just be like that. If, for example, it's at church, just make sure that you know the church related information. You don't meet a person in church and you start talking to them about the club. They are going to immediately be turned off because you are pulling up something, number one, maybe they are not interested in, but the fact that you met a person at church, it means they're interested in church. And you should maintain your first ever conversations about church. If it's in a public health conference, you have to make your first ever conversations just about public health. And from there, you are maybe going to end up having contact of this person, and that's when you can develop your conversations about something else. Also, it is very important to learn to listen to people. Don't just make the whole conversation about you. You can pause for a while and allow them to talk, or allow them to ask you questions as well. Just make sure that it is a two-way kind of conversation. It's not you who is acting like you are pitching, but also you are learning and willing to hear them talk. And also, the same way they're providing information about them, just make sure that you're providing the relevant and accurate information, not accurate, like the relevant information to the conversation that is going on. Don't just meet people in a professional setting and start telling them how handsome or how beautiful they are. Just a very private piece of information to share with everyone. Imagine if everyone really told you how they are without just taking it as a normal thing that everyone asks, how are you? And then the next thing is, I'm okay, how about you? Just that way as a form of greeting. So now think about it when it gets to be you trying to ask or trying to be flirty and penetrate someone's life, taking it far away from the setting and the occasion that you are in. It is so, I don't want to call it unprofessional, because you shouldn't always like be meeting people in professional setting. And even when you meet a person in a supermarket, make sure that you base your conversations basically on that environment that you are in. It's going to pull up the interest and make people want to talk to you more. And make sure you are not desperate. Desperate here, there is a way you meet someone. Trust me, when you meet a person in public, the way you feel maybe intimidated about them is the same way they feel kind of intimidated about you, because no one knows anybody. Like, you don't know them, they don't know you. So the same way you are thinking high of them, the same way they might be thinking high of you. Until you start talking to them, this is when you're going to really know who the person is. So don't look so desperate to talk to a person. Don't look so desperate to have someone's contact. Just let the conversation flow. And if you feel like it is important to collect this person's contact, just collect the contact, but don't go there and be like, hi sir, how are you? I do this and that, I'm a student, I am doing this and that, and I would love to have your contact. Why do you need his contact? This is the number one question that is going to get to his mind. But if you talk and get to just have like a flowing conversation after convincing them that this is who you are and this is what you are looking for, they are even going themselves to be like, here is my contact, maybe we can keep the conversation depending on the time you have, because maybe you're in a crowd of many people, they want to talk to the others, and sharing contacts is going to come naturally. And don't always go to talk to people with expectations to get their contact. It's not always necessary. Imagine if you go in a place where there are 300 people and you talk to 20 people, you don't necessarily need to collect contacts of 20 people. No, collect two or three which are really relevant and which are meaningful to whatever occasion you are in. If it's in a church setting, people who you think might help you spiritually. If it's in a professional setting, people whom you think are worth being in your network, they are okay. But it's not everyone whom you have to collect the numbers, because even at the end of the day, you are not going to be able to talk to everyone you've collected the number from. So starting conversations can be really tricky. I know it can be tricky, and I've said enough, or I've said a lot. While I am not a very expert, but I also believe that someone can learn something from this video. It's not a rocket science. It doesn't have anything to do with you being an introvert or an extrovert. It's how much you practice and how much you get yourself to be very comfortable around people, and how easy you make your conversations flow. So it doesn't have anything to do with social anxiety. Yes, your social anxiety might be a contributing factor to you repelling yourself. Social anxiety can be one of the factors. Maybe you refrain yourself, you don't want to talk to people, but also it is not a sole factor. You might be okay, you might be mentally fine, but you also don't have important or necessary skills that will allow you to be able to make the information flow and just be that kind of a friendly person. Through practice, everything can be achieved. You can be better, you can be a perfect communicator, you can be a perfect networker, and it's going to change your life. I am a very testifier of this. Being able to talk to people in public has changed my life. I have gotten so many opportunities from just talking to people to get to know what is happening around me. I've gotten job opportunities from that, and I know it is something that can happen to anyone, just as long as you try to manage how you start to talk to people and how you maintain those conversations and how you manage what comes out of those talks. So if you have watched this video until this point, I hope it has empowered you or helped you in one or another way. And if so, please give me a thumbs up and share this video to your cycles, those people whom you think it is gonna help. And also don't forget to share with me in the comment section, how do you approach people, how do you talk to people, and how do you get to put yourself up to be seen, to be outstanding, and to be noticed in the crowds and in settings where people get to be engulfed by the environment and their surroundings. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I can't wait to see you in my next. Bye.